I traveled so cheaply because I was using volunteering websites like HelpX and Workaway, and I travel mostly within Europe. I did spend a year in Canada, half a year in America, the US, plus working on Carnival cruise ship on Caribbean for a few months, and some 10 months altogether in Asia, including India. So I did some paid gigs during those years too, like teaching English, or working as a stewardess on yachts, also a driver and a boat mechanic, and so on. I traveled for about 10 years on a budget well below the poverty line, around 150 euros a month, and that lasted until about 7 years ago. So today I would need probably a bit more, maybe 200 euros if I traveled like that. So it was slow traveling. I mostly stayed in one place for a couple of weeks to a couple of months. And yeah, I did get a desire to volunteer and travel again like that this year, so I joined again HelpX. But it was, it was 20 or 30 euros still, but Workaway was much more expensive. So yeah, I chose HelpX. But I noticed that nowadays the hosts ask you to work like 5 hours, even hard labor, just for food and accommodation. And when I did it from about 2008 to 2016, it was mostly 4 hours or even 4 hours or less. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess the value of human work is going down, it seems. I don't know. So yeah, also they reject you if you do not eat gluten. I guess it's easy for the host to find free labor nowadays. When I started volunteering in 2009, there was a financial crisis. People were losing their jobs massively, and I thought, okay, instead of spending time applying for jobs, maybe not getting it for a long time, I might as well volunteer. Also, if I work for a salary, after paying for food and accommodation, I could hardly save anything anyway, so might as well travel. Yeah, I was mostly volunteering in hostels, doing reception work, and most of the time it also included cleaning and changing beds in exchange for a dorm bed. Also, breakfast was included mostly. And once I even had a room for myself, and I stayed at that place for 6 months, mostly because I was painting a huge mural on the terrace the last 3 months, for which I got 100 euros. But yeah, I didn't know it would turn out so well. I would have asked for more. Yeah, a few times I was alone in a dorm because it was low season, and usually, yeah, you get breakfast, but you can also cook your own meals in the kitchen, and the hostels are mostly in great locations and city centers. I also volunteered in a farm once in construction. I was working on Baustelle in Germany 5 hours a day, and that was by far the hardest gig. And today, I think it's exploitative to have volunteers in a business that makes money, because people should be paid if someone is profiting from their work, I think, at least a little bit. I was in my 30s during those years. My last hostel volunteering gig was when I was 39, and I started to feel too old for volunteering in hostels. And Croatia entered the EU soon before that, my last volunteering, so I just quit and found an English teaching job instead and rented a room. My first room was 280 euros, right next to the Retiro Park in Madrid. Yeah, great location, 280. Yeah, that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, I was incredibly happy with that hostel volunteering lifestyle, and I just love being able to decide, where do I want to spend my spring? Maybe riding horses in Tuscany, and then anything I thought of, I could normally get a job there immediately. It's really easy to get a job when you don't ask for a salary. I sometimes contacted hostels that didn't even know about this option, so I just suggested, I can work for you for free, can I come? And they said yes. When I lived and worked in a small town, Taormina, on Sicily, it was too small, it was December, so I just decided to move to Catania, and it was easy, with no money. I had a view of the Etna volcano from my bed. And in Taormina, I got breakfast and dinner, and I learned Italian within 1 month because I was listening to an Italian course while walking around the town, like for 4 or 5 hours a day. So it was really an intense course. So why did I volunteer for so long? Because I loved it. I'm both a highly sensitive person, HSP, and high sensation seeker at the same time. So as a high sensation seeker, you need novelty and change. And as an HSP, you can't really handle much novelty and change. But I wasn't getting stressed at the time, even though I was broke. I just didn't get stressed. I really, really enjoyed it. I liked having a job everywhere I went, even if it's only for accommodation. I felt integrated in local life. I think it felt better than just being a tourist. And without being overworked. In Istanbul, Turkey, I only worked for 2 hours a day and had fresh food from a market cooked by a chef who was my boss. And I was there during the Gezi Park protests. So yeah, the hostel was like empty, and we had just a journalist whose photo ended up on the cover of Times, so we celebrated. Yeah, I was having a great time. I was extremely happy during those years. And since I was single and poor, I thought, I hope I don't have some brain tumor. I shouldn't be this happy. It's not normal. But I think I was happy, well, partially because I'm a naturally happy person, especially when I get to spend most of my time doing what I want to do and not what I have to do for work. Also, I was living in harmony with my nature. I had change, novelty, learning, and time. And I valued time more than money. And that's why I felt rich. I was free. I was time rich. Also, I wasn't supposed to be able to afford to go anywhere I wanted, whenever I wanted, and live in the center of the cities. So, yeah. Also, when you're not paid for the work and it wasn't any kind of like internship where I would have to make a commitment to, I just said, I will stay however long I feel like it. So when I felt it was enough, that it was time to move on, I just moved on. I didn't have any like obligation to give a 2-week notice or a 1-month notice like they do here in Germany. The work was a few hours a day, so I had plenty of time to work on my hobbies and passion projects. At that time, I was learning the local language and maybe sometimes a local dance. I was reading, I was drawing occasionally. So I spent my time between parks, beaches, and libraries. And yeah, those are still my happiest places. And also when working, I was meeting new people from all over the world, which I also love. So yeah, I really don't need to spend money to be happy. Actually, I would be less happy if I was spending my time doing something that requires spending money. And that is still true today. So I adore walking in nature, listening to podcasts or audiobooks in languages that I'm learning, or sometimes even courses. And I'm always learning some language. I taught myself a few, but I'm really fluent right now only in English, Spanish, and German, and my native Croatian and a few other Balkan languages that are actually the same language with different names. I was fluent in Italian, but yeah, I would need a few weeks to get it back. I might move to Italy a bit. Yeah, Italian language is really beautiful and very easy to learn. And their libraries are the most beautiful ones. They look like monasteries or museums. There were some downsides. There were some downsides to this lifestyle, though, yeah, for me, they were not very important. For example, once or twice, I was literally hungry. I remember when when I wanted to buy peanuts, I knew I was probably low on cash, but I tried to buy a pack of peanuts in a supermarket in Naples, and my card didn't go through, and yeah, I didn't have enough money for a pack of peanuts. And I love peanuts. I felt hungry, and that felt so frustrating that I cried a bit. But I forgot it quickly. And the next day I negotiated with the owner of the hostel that I work. Longer shifts, once a week, but the paid shift, so I can afford food. Yeah, something like that happened just one more time during those years. But I looked at the bright side of it. I tend to gain weight easily. If you can't afford food, you don't gain weight. I have always been disciplined and ate healthy. So the first thing I would buy when I would move to a city is a kilo of rice and a kilo of lentils. And that was kind of a safety net. That was like €2, and I could survive a few weeks on that. But I didn't just eat rice and lentils. I could afford vegetables and some fish. I never bought meat. And I had one chocolate a week at that time, but I still try to do that. Just once a week chocolate. I still drank alcohol back then, so I could afford a bottle of red wine like every 2 weeks. And yeah, I would ideally have it with someone interesting that I met in a hostel somewhere beautiful on a hill or a park or a beach. So I didn't miss anything, bars or anything. And I could definitely afford the decaf coffee every morning, not in a bar at home. So yeah, I could afford anything that was really important to me.